Perun is one of the most powerful and revered deities in Slavic mythology, the god of thunder, lightning, war, and the sky. Think of him as the Slavic counterpart to Norse Thor or Greek Zeus, but with his own fierce, earthy flavor. Key attributes: supreme deity in many Slavic pantheons, especially among East Slavs, associated with oak trees, eagles, and mountaintops. Wields a hammer, axe, or bow to hurl lightning bolts. Symbolizes justice, order, and masculine, strength mythological role. Perun was often depicted as a red-bearded warrior, clad in armor and riding a chariot pulled by goats or horses. His eternal rival was Veles, the god of the underworld and cattle. Their mythic battles, Perun striking from the sky, Veles hiding below, represented the cosmic struggle between order and chaos, sky and earth, light and shadow. Cultural significance: worshipped in oak groves and on hilltops, where sacrifices, often bulls or rams, were made. His name lives on in Slavic languages. For example, Piorun in Polish means lightning. After Christianization, Perun's traits were absorbed into the figure of Saint Ilya, who also rides a fiery chariot and hurls lightning. Historical footprint: mentioned as early as the 6th century by Byzantine historian Procopius Central to the Kievan Rus pantheon before the adoption of Christianity in 988 AD. Shrines and idols of Perun were destroyed or repurposed, but his legacy persisted in folklore and seasonal rituals. The fall of the thunder god symbols: with the Christianization of Kievan Rus in 988 AD, the sacred groves fell silent. Perun's towering idols, carved from oak and crowned with silver and gold, were torn down by decree of Prince Vladimir. The most iconic statue, said to bear a silver head and golden mustache, was cast into the Dnieper River as a symbolic rejection of the old gods. The people watched as the waters swallowed their thunder god, some weeping, others fearful of divine retribution. But the destruction did not end with the idols. Symbols of Perun, the axe-shaped amulets, thunder marks etched into rooftops, and sacred oak carvings were systematically erased or rebranded. What once protected homes from lightning was now condemned as pagan superstition. Rituals honoring Perun were outlawed, and his name was replaced in prayers by that of Saint Ilya, who inherited the thunder and chariot, but not the wild, primal justice of the old god. Yet even in ruin, Perun endured. His thunder still rolled across the sky, and in whispered tales and solstice fires, the Slavic people remembered. Some buried his symbols beneath their homes, believing they still held power. Others carved them anew in secret, passing them down as heirlooms of resistance, not just to religious change, but to the loss of cosmic order. In the clash between old and new, Perun's destruction became more than a historical event. It was a mythic echo of his eternal battle, with Veles chaos rising, order cast down, only to rise again in memory and myth. Chapter 1: The Skyfather awakens from the trembling canopy of Svarga. The winds bore word of Perun's awakening to all corners of the land. Mountains knelt in reverence. Wolves howled hymns in ancient tongues. The gods gathered in the circle of flame to behold their kin reborn. Veles, serpent lord of the underworld, watched from beneath the roots of the world tree with eyes like molten coal. He hissed, for he knew that balance had broken. Where thunder rules, shadow stirs. Perun raised his arms, and storm clouds followed. His voice was thunder wrapped in prophecy. "Let the dawn rise, and let it tremble," he declared, and with a strike of his axe, the sacred sekira, he carved the skies into rivers of fire. Beneath him, humanity stirred. They were fragile sparks wandering in darkness, unaware of the war winds gathering on the horizon. Yet Perun saw promise in them, flames waiting to be kindled. He reached down and marked the first warrior with a touch of lightning. Thus was born the Valk, seer and protector, chosen to channel the Skyfather's will. But far below, in the cold coils of the earth, Veles began to twist fate to his own design. And so began the great weave of conflict, storm versus shadow, sky versus soil. It would echo across generations, in clash and song, in blood and legend. High the Skyfather versus the Serpent Lord, seeds of strife, clash of domains. Perun reigns over the heavens, storms, law, and order. Veles rules the underworld, earth, chaos, and trickery. Their realms are opposites, and their boundaries constantly blur. Each sees the other's influence as a threat to balance, the theft of the sacred herd. Veles, ever the cunning shapeshifter, steals Perun's divine cattle, a symbol of prosperity and purity, and hides them in the dark roots beneath the earth. This act ignites Perun's fury, leading to a yearly battle as he hunts Veles down through storms. The duel of ages, each clash reshapes the world. Perun rains lightning bolts down, splitting mountains and boiling rivers. Veles retaliates with plague, illusion, and the rising of swamps. Mortals witness these duels as catastrophic storms and floods. Nature itself becomes the battlefield. Divine intrigue, Veles whispers to mortals, tempting kings and priests with forbidden knowledge. He seeks to sway the Valk, Perun's chosen, and unravel the Skyfather's influence. Meanwhile, Perun creates sacred groves and thunderstones, sanctuaries untouched by shadow. The eternal cycle, the war never truly ends. It becomes a divine rhythm. Summer storms as Perun strikes, autumn mists as Veles slithers back. This cycle reflects the turning of seasons, the balance of light and dark, order and chaos. Chapter 2. Clash over the living world. Perun, High Lord of Thunder, was not born of wrath, but of duty. He bore the weight of justice like a crown of fire, always vigilant, always alone. Among the gods, he was the one who rarely laughed, whose eyes surveyed all but sought solace in none. Yet beneath his armor of storms, Perun harbored a quiet sorrow. The knowledge that peace, once shattered, must be protected with violence. His flaming axe was both shield and burden, a relic from battles he'd hoped never to fight again. Veles, meanwhile, was more than a mere thief of divine relics. He was a god of yearning, for freedom, for chaos, for the forgotten songs buried in mud and root. Cast into the underworld long ago, Veles found beauty in decay, wisdom in disorder. He didn't steal from the heavens out of hate. He did it to remind them, every soul has a shadow, and even gods should feel the tug of mortality. Where others saw him as a serpent, Veles saw himself as a liberator of hidden truths. Yet his cunning often crossed into cruelty, and even he began to lose sight of where mischief ended and malice began. Their battle was never simple conquest. It was the clash of two ideologies, two aching hearts sculpted by eternity. Perun chased not just Veles, but the ghost of peace, haunted by the world's fragile balance, desperate to anchor it in law. Veles fled not only punishment, but stagnation, craving movement, flux, the dance of rebirth. And as they collided, season after season, they changed. Mortals saw thunder and believed the gods to be furious, but those who listened closely, in the hush between bolts, swore they heard something else. Sorrow in the rain, longing in the wind, as if two immortal beings had come to know each other too deeply, bound not just by enmity, but by necessity. Chapter 3. The Grove of Judgment high upon Mount Triglav, where the sky brushed earth and whispers of the spirit rustled through ancient pines, Perun raised a shrine not simply of oak and bronze, but of cosmic intention. It stood encircled by stone monoliths etched with runes that pulsed faintly beneath moonlight, alive with the breath of the gods. Here, where clouds moved like ghosts and the winds carried secrets from the beyond, mortals dared to petition the thunder's will. Perun, the wielder of storms, watched from his cloud-forged throne, his eyes molten silver, piercing the veil between realms. His voice, low as mountains groaning, sharp as the clash of steel, echoed through lightning-struck dreams and waking visions. His dominion was not taken, but invoked. By blood, by vow, by the roar of thunder above trembling treetops. Warriors arrived one by one, cloaked in the dust of long marches, eyes weary, hearts heavy with the weight of destiny. Among them was Dragon, son of Murin, a man torn between vengeance and justice. The death of his brother haunted him like wolves in the dark. And yet here, beneath the gaze of the divine, he sought not merely power, but permission. His oath, spoken before the grove, rang with pain. The thunder rolled in approval. Kings came too, not clad in gold and arrogance, but in humility. King Dobroslav knelt upon cold stone, his hands wrapped around offerings of salt and grain. He spoke not of conquest, but begged for wisdom, whether peace might yet prevail among feuding clans. His voice trembled, and the grove listened. Priests, veiled in crimson robes stitched with celestial thread, performed sacred rites with reverent choreography. Bulls were sacrificed not in cruelty, but communion, each life a thread in the great tapestry woven by the gods. Blood flowed into the sacred soil, feeding roots older than time. From the rising smoke, Perun emerged, towering, radiant, his hair a cascade of storm clouds, his breath stirring the flame. In his hand glowed the axe, blinding in its divine forgelight. Some claimed it was once the spine of a fallen star, hammered into form upon anvils of silence. Others swore it pulsed with the rhythm of creation itself, cutting away chaos, cleaving paths for order to rise. It was balance incarnate. Then the judgments began. Perun spoke not as a judge alone, but as a mirror. Each soul that stood before him was laid bare, truth unmasked, fear unraveled. To Dragon, he gave a choice. Vengeance would grant victory, but at the price of becoming what he despised. To Dobroslav, he showed a vision, a grove not unlike this one, where future kings would plant trees instead of bury blades. And to the grove itself, he gave a promise, that as long as oaths were spoken in truth, the mountain would answer. Thus the Grove of Judgment endured, not as a monument, but as a living pact. Between mortal and divine, between chaos and creation, between man and the storm. Chapter 4. Mortal champions in the age when gods walked unseen, and storms whispered omens through ancient oak groves. Perun, Lord of Thunder, chose among mortals those who bore the spark of law and courage. His champions were not born into greatness. They were forged by trials, tempered by duty, and entrusted with divine essence. Clad in bronze, imbued with the breath of storms, these defenders bore Perun's symbols, eagles for heavenly vision and oaks for rooted strength. Their purpose was sacred: stand against the creeping rot of corruption, protect the fragile law that held chaos at bay, and remind the world that justice was not an abstraction, but a living flame. Among them, none shone brighter than Dobrynya of Kiev. Born beneath a thunderstorm so fierce it split the sky, Dobrynya came from humble beginnings. Raised among farmers and storytellers, he grew tall and true, guided more by conscience than command. Tales say his mother wrapped him in a woven cloth bearing Perun's mark, unaware that her son would one day speak the god's name not in prayer, but in battle. His destiny arrived in the form of darkness, Zime Goranich, a beast of myth and menace. No ordinary dragon, Zime was chaos incarnate, a relic from the days before cosmic order, when Veles still bartered with shadows and Perun's lightning had yet to draw borders in the sky. Zime bore 3 heads. One whispered lies shaped like truth. Another spoke seductions of comfort and surrender. The third screamed madness so loud it cracked stone. Imprisoned for centuries beneath the marshes of Miravad by a pact between gods, the beast stirred again when mortal hearts drifted from reverence. Its wings blotted out the sun. Its fire didn't merely scorch, it infected minds, pitting neighbor against neighbor, dissolving the threads of society. None dared face it, except Dobrynya. On the eve of his reckoning, he knelt at Perun's hidden shrine, offering sacred tokens, a braid of his mother's hair and the broken shard of an elder warrior's blade. Perun answered, not with thunder, but with wind and presence. The god, cloaked in storm-gray robes, laid a hand on Dobrynya's shoulder and whispered, "Let not fear root in your heart, for thunder walks with you now." Armed with the Gramuvea Iskra, the spark of thunder, Dobrynya's blade shimmered with runes that pulsed like lightning trapped in metal. His shield bore the eagle and the oak, symbols of celestial judgment and earthy resilience. He walked alone to the marshes, beneath a sky too silent. Zime rose from mire and memory, its head speaking in tones that cut deeper than claws. "You are nothing. Your father knew it. Why don't you? Turn away, hero. Find love, live soft, die quiet. Burn with me. Let the world scream." Dobrynya didn't yield. His shield blocked fire. His sword cut through delusion. The heavens awakened, hurling lightning in rhythm with his strikes. Yet Zime fought back with fury older than mountains. Its tail sent Dobrynya flying into shattered stone, ribs cracked, strength waning. But Dobrynya stood again. He called Perun's name not as plea, but as vow. He flung his shield skyward, invoking sacred sigils. A spear of lightning descended, guided by his final leap. He drove his thunderblade into Zime's core. The roar was cosmic. Flames devoured the marsh. Zime's heads shrieked as one, then dissolved into mist. At the sight of its death, only a blackened oak stood, a scar, a symbol, and a reminder. Dobrynya did not claim glory. He returned to Kiev, quiet, storm-eyed, still protecting. When he died, lightning struck thrice upon his grave. Around village fires, elders told the story not just of a dragon slain, but of a man who chose justice over fame, sacrifice over kingship. And when storms rolled across the hills, people didn't fear thunder. They remembered. Chapter 5. The Binding of Chaos. The sky wept ash. Smoke curled across the horizon as Veles, god of chaos and depths, slithered between realms. No longer content with deception and whispers, he rose in a guise so terrible that the ancient trees split open. A dragon with 100 heads, each shrieking with a different horror. With every breath, he spat plague and flood. Cattle vanished, crops twisted into poison, and rivers surged with fury through village walls. Among mortals, dread bloomed like fever. But in the high places where thunder slept, Perun stirred. He did not descend quickly. The sky rumbled for 3 days before fire tore through the clouds, and he stepped out, a figure carved from stormlight, bearing the axe that split creation. His double-headed blade pulsed with power ancient and elemental, etched with runes that whispered the oaths of birth. Then the war began. Perun met Veles above the Valley of Flame, where once gods had danced. Their first collision shattered the air, light against shadow, law against wildness. The dragon's heads struck in unison, jaws clamping like iron, but Perun moved like lightning embodied. Each strike of his axe was a storm surge, dismembering necks with furious precision. But Veles adapted. With every defeat, he learned. His heads began to speak in the voices of dead gods, casting illusions to bend reality. One moment, Perun was caught in a burning tundra. The next, suspended in pitch void. Veles fought not with strength, but with distortion. Still, Perun endured. He called lightning down upon his own body, letting his wrath burn through false worlds. Thunderstones gathered in his fists as he punched through illusions, scattering echoes with raw will. Their battle raged for days. Veles summoned storms of blood. Perun split them with radiant arcs. The dragon rose higher, grew vaster, swallowed moons. But Perun fell back only once into the earth itself, and from the soil drew power. The voices of mankind, prayers wrapped in wind. They gave him form anew. In a final clash, Perun leapt skyward, his body ablaze with mortal hope and divine fury. With a war cry older than time, he hurled his axe, not at Veles's heads, but through his heart of chaos. The strike sang like destiny fulfilled. Sky fractured, mountains bowed, the 100 heads shrieked and collapsed. Veles did not die, he could not. Chaos does not perish, it recoils. So Perun carried his rival to the edge of the Black Marsh, where the world forgets its name. Beneath obsidian waters and silence thick as death, he buried Veles. The runes he carved, thunderstone forged in oath and lightning, bound the god not in chains, but in meaning. Each symbol a law of stillness, each curve a promise of balance. As the last rune sealed, the dragon whispered, "You cannot rule what you do not understand." Perun, bleeding sparks and soul, whispered, "Yet I must." And so the storm hushed, the skies cleared, rivers gentled. Children woke without fear. In the villages, songs rose again, not of triumph, but of survival. Still, beneath the marsh, something stirred. Chaos dreams. Chapter 6. Echoes through time with the Christianization of Slavic peoples. Perun's altars were torn down, his name whispered in secret. Yet he lived on in stories, symbols, and saints. The fiery chariot of St. Ilya, the storms of midsummer, the sacred grove festivals, all bore echoes of the thunder god. Both Perun and Ilya command the skies. Perun hurled lightning bolts from his mountaintop throne, while Ilya rides a flaming chariot across the heavens, his thunder shaking the earth. In folk songs, Ilya is said to wield the thunder as a weapon against evil. Just as Perun once battled the serpent Veles, guardian of the underworld. Their shared dominion over storms, justice, and divine wrath made the transition seamless. The old god was not erased, but renamed. In Serbian tradition, St. Ilya's feast day on August 2nd is marked by thunderous weather and strict taboos. No one works the fields, lest the saint strike in anger, a lingering echo of Perun's fiery judgment. In some villages, people still say, Ilya remembered his day, when lightning splits the sky. And in the mountains, where clouds gather and the wind howls, it's not uncommon to hear elders whisper that Perun still walks. Even today, in rural rituals and midsummer bonfires, his spirit crackles in flame and cloud. The dottle rain dances, performed by girls in wreaths and soaked garments, call upon the old gods to quench the earth, a rite once dedicated to Perun and his consort Dodola. The Perunica flower, named for the god, still blooms in gardens across Serbia, its violet petals a symbol of divine fire. But Perun's legacy is not only mythic, it is carved in stone. Stones that still speak across the Slavic lands, remnants of Perun's worship endure. Perun Hill, Perunovo, near Split, Croatia, once a sacred site, now marked by a chapel to St. Ilya, preserving the continuity of thunder worship. Perun's stone idol in the village of Veliki Novgorod, Russia. A replica stands today, commemorating the original statue destroyed during Christianization. Perun's grove near Kiev, Ukraine, archaeological digs have uncovered ritual pits and stone fragments believed to be part of Perun's sanctuary. In eastern Serbia, especially around Timok and Zadar, locals still speak of nameless stone crosses and oak groves where Perun was once honored. These sites, often lacking inscriptions, are believed to predate Christianity and serve as silent witnesses to the old faith. These stones, weathered and half forgotten, are more than relics. They are thresholds, places where the veil thins and the old gods stir. And in the thunder that rolls across the Balkan hills, in the fire that dances atop midsummer pyres, Perun still answers. Chapter 7. The oak still stands. Though centuries have passed and idols have crumbled into moss and memory, Perun's oak still stands, unyielding, vast, rooted deeper than the oldest bloodline. In the shadowed groves of Serbia and the windswept woods of Rus, it stretches skyward like a monument to forgotten thunder. Beneath its canopy, where eagle nests high in twisted limbs and wolves whisper to the moon, the air still hums with ancient power. When storms march across the mountains and lightning dances in the dark, his voice roars not as mere wind, but as a call to conscience. Perun does not slumber in the dust of time. He lives in every soul that chooses truth when lies tempt comfort, that stands firm when chaos claws at the gates. His justice echoes not in parchment or decree, but in acts, the quiet strength of the protector, the fierce blaze of the liberator. His fire kindles in those who speak boldly, who shield the weak, who carry wounds as proof of valor. His axe, though unseen, is felt in every hand that defends, every footstep toward the light, every refusal to bow before darkness. It is swung in silence when courage outweighs fear. It is raised in defiance where tyranny dares to tread. And still, the oak stands. Through war and winter, through desecration and doubt, it remains, its roots entwined with myth and marrow, its leaves rustling like hymns. A generation may forget, but the forest remembers. The eagle remembers. And somewhere, deep within every heart that knows struggle, Perun waits, not as a relic, but as a reckoning. So let the storm come. Let it rage and roar. For those who walk with honor walk beneath his branches, and they need not fear the thunder. Chapter 8. The return of Veles chaos never truly sleeps. It slumbers beneath the bones of mountains, curled in roots of ancient trees, humming low beneath the skin of the world. And now it stirs. The old prophecies whisper, when the skies fall mute and no storm dares speak, when the oak no longer dances in wind, the serpent will rise. Veles, the deceiver, the usurper of light, returns not as beast, but as whisper cloaked in gold, smiling in courts, lurking behind laws and prayers. He shall wear the flesh of false prophets, preaching poisoned truths in sacred halls. He shall crown greedy kings in thrones carved from betrayal. He shall trade destinies in smoke-filled dens where shadowy merchants barter souls for silver. Beneath cities, in broken cathedrals and forgotten woods, his name will be spoken in fear, not reverence. The balance falters, but myths do not forget. When Veles ascends, so too shall Perun awaken, not in flash and thunder alone, but in the clenched fists of the just, in the rebellion of the forsaken, in storms that roar through silent lands. His return will shake the stars. This eternal cycle, this war of rhythm and rupture, does not end. It tightens like a noose around the neck of order, and once more the heavens will bleed fire. Chapter 9. You are the storm. And so, reader, mortal child of earth, spark in the veins of history, know this. Whether in sacred grove or midnight city street, Perun watches. His gaze is iron. His presence, silent thunder. He does not wait in the heavens. He walks beside those who challenge the silence. When your heartbeat quickens in the face of injustice, it is his war drum echoing in your chest. For once, long ago, Perun carved rivers through mountains with lightning. He shattered the serpent Veles's grip on the world, not with blind rage, but with unwavering purpose. He did not simply destroy, he restored balance. And now, in this age of quiet chaos and creeping shadows, his storm breathes through you. You are his voice in a world that's forgotten myth. When you challenge cruelty, you speak his language. When you defend the innocent, your hands echo his thunder. When you dream beyond despair, you wield his axe, not to tear down, but to clear a path. Let your courage be his shield. He is not just a god of storms, but of justice, unyielding and pure. He does not favor crowns or bloodlines. He favors those who rise, fall, and rise again. He speaks to the lone soul standing against armies of fear. Deciduous tree, you are not alone. Perun is in the roots of old oaks and the pulses of young dreamers. He is in every child who asks why, in every artist who creates despite doubt. He is the storm that tears through stagnation and plants seeds in its wake. So rise, raise your voice like lightning splitting silence. Raise your hand like branches reaching skyward. Raise your storm and remind the world. The gods are not gone, they are waking in us.